Welcome to the Criterion Correction. My name is Dr. Zed.
And I'm Ed.
In this podcast, we'll be delving deep into the Criterion collection of films, trying to figure out exactly what it says about cinema as a whole and what makes a movie worthy of being added to the collection. Join us as we decide, should we collect them all? This week, we visit a new director, Kaurismaki, and the 2011 film Le Havre. I think that's how you say it, at least. Le Havre? I don't know. Just roll credits. So, a cop walks into a bar with a pineapple.
All right.
That's it. Don't you love it? Isn't it the best joke ever?
That's it. What is the symbolism of the pineapple in this metaphorical joke?
What do you think? It's right out there in the open.
Well, I'm being dense. I guess I don't get it. What is the symbolism?
Come on. You've studied literary analysis. You know whenever there's a pineapple, there's a...
roller coaster?
Sometimes, but no, that's not it. I mean, you wouldn't take a pineapple on a roller coaster. That just screams of injury.
Speak for yourself. Okay,
Wait. Are you telling me you've taken a pineapple on a roller coaster?
I don't have to talk my private life here. So does it represent a pair of shoes?
No, not a pair of shoes. You're close, though. I mean, I know if I'd been talking about papaya, then you'd have it. But remember, pineapple.
All right. Baseball jerseys.
Jeez. I mean, come on. That's totally apples. American.
Fair. All right. I don't know why I didn't get that. All right. Here's my last guess. It's a penis.
Oh. You are correct. Actually, okay, no, you're not correct. It's the pain of a good deed that goes punished.
Or the pain of listening to poetic plot.
That's far worse.
Marcel shines shoes and has a wife, whose illness is from him concealed. But into his largely pleasant life, a new challenge will soon be revealed. That would be Idrissa, an immigrant, whose goal is to reach Old England's shore, while avoiding Monet, an inspector who can't find him, and thus starts the chasing sport. Marcel hides and feeds him while caring for his wife as she's under doctor's care. Through various schemes and considerable guile, Marcel finds a way to pay Idrissa's England fare. Idrissa is almost caught by Monet, but he allows Idrissa to escape to his mom. Marcel's wife somehow recovers and struts, home with him to see the tree's new blossoms. Now, Dr. Z, the last film that we watched that was billed as a comedy, Meantime, had about as many laughs as a leisurely stroll through broken glass. Le Havre, at least on IMDb, has a similar genre labeling. So, did Le Havre tickle the funny bone any more than Meantime, or do people just not know how to label comedy anymore?
I mean, come on. I don't know about you, but I've always been looking for a mashup of Marcel Duchamp and Karl Marx, and this movie delivered.
Don't you mean Marcel Duchamp?
No, Marcel Duchamp.
Who's Marcel Duchamp?
I mean, it's like a little shell with legs that talks.
This is the thing?
Yeah, go look on YouTube.
Is that like the one that Jenny Slate voices?
Oh.
I don't even know what you're referencing.
I don't. That's the beauty of it.
I guess that is the lifeblood of this show, so I suppose that works.
Well, okay. I mean, this movie is definitely a comedy because, my God, we need to add shoe shine to the list of dangerous jobs.
Yeah, who would have thought that a film like this would open with a shoe shine person witnessing what appears to be a mob hit?
Yeah, and not even that. I mean, just like, come on, if you've got a briefcase handcuffed to your arm, do you really have time for a shoe shine?
Some people like the finer things.
Where do they train these spies?
You were reading that they were spies?
He had a briefcase, like, handcuffed to his arm.
Yep, because the only people who have briefcases are spies. And actually, was it handcuffed to his arm? It had handcuffs on it, but I didn't think it was handcuffed to his arm.
No, I thought it was like handcuffed to him, like he couldn't steal it or whatnot. I mean, no one could steal it from him. That or it's nuclear codes. And at this point, I wouldn't be shocked.
Look, this wasn't Kiss Me Deadly. You have the wrong film.
Anyway, I mean, it is just a little surreal whenever you have the spy mob, whatever you want to call it, and the guy walks out, and then there's very clearly the Foley artist having the time of his life with screams and gunshots, and then just very calmly, Chang is like, I think you should go.
Though, That was amusing. That wasn't the funniest part of the film for me. I got a genuine half-a-minute laugh out of the scene where Marcel tries to, and succeeds in convincing some French official that he is the albino brother of someone he has in captivity.
True, that's true. That definitely was well played by him.
I'm not sure I would call this a comedy either, but dang it, I definitely laughed a lot more than I did in Meantime, or some of the other things that we've watched that have been labeled comedies.
Well, I also think we need to consider it in the Shakespearean sense of a comedy, or the classical theater sense of a comedy, in that it's a movie that doesn't rip your soul out.
You know, that was one of the things that I was pleasantly surprised by in this film, because I kept on waiting for the other shoe to drop. I kept on, and maybe it was just me being cynical, and I've watched one other film by this director, which was considerably darker than this, so I kept on waiting for the rug to be pulled out from under me and his wife is dead, or the kid is somehow secretly a terrorist and he's done a terrible thing, or
I never expected that.
I not that I thought the film was building to that, but it's just like that would have been a last minute twist it could have pulled, or the inspector does end up turning the kid in, and so it was rather refreshing to me that it actually obviously didn't do that.
I fully expected the wife to be a goner, especially after the kid got away to London. I was like, okay, this movie has to have the idea that, well, he did a good deed, but doesn't matter. And it pulled the opposite. It did the old soap opera fake out. You can collect her things later. Oh, sad. Wait, she's miraculously cured from the disease that was never specified.
I was kind of assuming cancer, but you're right, they never specify. And I was honestly... I thought they were, not that I wanted this, but I thought they were almost playing it for grim comedy, because they had set up earlier that the doctor wasn't allowed to tell the husband that she was dying. And so I thought that was the payoff, that, I didn't expect it to go this bad this quickly, and it was going to be played that way. And so I was then doubly surprised when, as you note, oh no, she's somehow better. Though I still want to know what was in that package if it wasn't the dress.
Oh, it was just her other belongings. You know, she's packing up to go home. Wrapped it with the exact same package. Yes, definitely. She just wanted to impress him. She wanted to, punk him, essentially. Huh? You thought I was dead.
Yep. That is the side of a stable relationship. Punking your significant other to make them think that you have passed on.
Yep. And that's the surefire way of telling if your relationship is going to last.
We watched this a while ago, and so I don't know if you thought about this or not, but in a lot of ways, this kind of reminded me of The Kid on the Bike that we watched by the Dardenne brothers. Not in tone, because this was significantly cheerier than that, but kind of in that everyday realism.
Are you talking about everyday realism? Who's using a rotary phone in 2011 France?
Hey, we don't know what year it is.
Yeah, we do.
How do we know what year it is?
We know it's at least after 2005, because that's the date that he asks for in the wine.
Okay, that's fair. We do know that. I was about to say the only real sign we have of time is one person uses a cell phone in the course of the film.
Yes, juxtaposed with the rotary phone, which I don't really have a problem with, but I do think we need to talk about, this has such a vibe of 70s to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't quite say 70s, but it definitely feels a bit out of time, because, as we said, without those very few time markers we get, this could easily have taken place any time in the last 40 years.
And I wonder if part of that has to deal with a little bit of the subtext here, that you're getting into this immigration crisis. And I think that you see this really predicting / I forget exactly when attention kind of went to it, but I think this is before we really had a lot of attention over immigration away from,
I think it hit Now, and granted, I'm not an expert on European politics. I think these sentiments started hitting Europe a little bit earlier than they hit the U.S., at least in terms of mass awareness. But this is definitely before the refugee crisis that definitely sparked those discussions even more. And so watching this now makes it even more resonant than I think it probably was even when it was being filmed.
Well, and I also wonder if it also represents sort of the timelessness of this problem of the sentiment towards individuals who are attempting for whatever reason to emigrate to a new place. And I think that the timelessness of this sort of represents, the timelessness of this issue of grappling with these sort of changes. And then you have I guess, the sort of like downtrodden lower class is sort of helping, which is interesting.
Well, I mean, and I've already brought up Meantime in terms of comparison, but the people that we're dealing with are roughly of the same socioeconomic scale as in Meantime, with like not the greatest jobs, not the most money. But here, the film is kind of highlighting the value that can be derived from community, where you have these people who aren't necessarily that nice to Marcel in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, I'm actually upstairs. Ignore the legs under the door.
And the Yvette not wanting to give him bread that apparently he is behind in paying for. But as things go worse for him, and as he has this person he's looking after, the community really gathers around him and helps him out. And I kept on...
They even throw a charity concert. This movie has everything. It's got drama, it's got comedy, it's got a musical number.
One of the more interesting things that I learned is the musical act, Little Bob or Little Bob's Story, it is an actual rock band that is popular in France. Basically, I guess it's like if you have Beyonce in a film, that if you have her in it, she's got to sing. So basically, Beyonce's in this film.
I question that analogy, sir.
Maybe it puts it a little bit strongly, but they are apparently genuinely a very popular band.
Well, I figure they had to have been, because otherwise I was just like, why am I sitting through this whole song? Let's throw a charity concert. It's trendy.
I don't know if it was the sound mixing or not, but even though he's singing in English, I couldn't find myself understanding very much of what he was saying. So I was wondering if there was some kind of commentary going on in that, but if there was, I missed it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. But at least Mimi and Little Bob got back together.
Also, something that I didn't realize, this is a pseudo-sequel.
Whoa, what?
Marcel is actually a character in a different film by this director, which is basically an adaptation of La Bohème, and I haven't seen it, so I can't speak to the entire plot and who maps onto who, but I do know, apparently in that film, Marcel does befriend an illegal immigrant from Albania, so I think if we had watched that film, it probably would have had even more resonance how he treats Idrissa in this film.
Wait, really? Same actor and everything?
Same actor, same character.
Holy moly. Is it in the Criterion?
I don't believe so.
Well, how can they do that? You can't put the sequel to... That'd be like Lady Snowblood 2 only being in the collection.
I think it's a fairly loose sequel, but still, it does have a character that... And apparently several. I think actually Mimi was also from the earlier film, which, kind of tracks.
Well, man, because, yeah, I was like, okay, just random characters. That lighting, I think that was... my one gripe with this movie is that lighting transition when Mimi and Bob are reunited.
Oh, come on. I thought it was cute.
No, it was just too far. Too breaking of the fourth wall almost. We're going to turn up the lights now.
I forgave it because Let's not forget, the scene basically starts with Marcel saying to little Bob, hey, I really need you to throw this trendy musical concert. And with like no other lead in. And that really made me laugh. So after that point, I was going to forgive anything that happened.
And I mean, I think that the best performance in this movie came from Laika. Did you notice in the opening credits, he got a billing. He's not just a dog. He got a billing, which is like, all right, I'm fine with a dog getting a billing. I mean, I guess he's a descendant of that Soviet space dog named Laika, which is why I immediately went and looked up because I'm like, that name sounds familiar for a dog.
Well, I mean, I think one of the production companies on this was called Sputnik, so...
Yeah, it was. That like threw me for a second. I'm like, whoa, is this a Russian movie?
Well, so Aki Kaurismaki is a Finnish director. Obviously, the film is set in and spoken in France/French, and I don't know what the Russians have to do, but, international productions are difficult to finance, so I'm sure they took whatever money they could.
I wish it was a Finnish movie, not a French movie. I want to see more Finnish movies. We watched tons of French movies so far.
There's probably an argument to be made on what makes a film definitively Finnish or French, but we can have that argument a different day. I don't know. I don't have that much to say about this, not because I didn't like it, but because this film, it has a great deal of narrative thrift. It is under 90 minutes long. It proceeds in a pretty linear way, and what strikes me most is the fundamental goodness of just about everybody involved.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie that maybe it's like a repentance for the movie you saw from him that was more grim, because I feel like anytime that you make a really grim movie, it's you balance it out by making one that's like humanity isn't all suck.
And for the record, the movie I did watch, I think it's called The Match Factory Girl, and in that film, the actress who plays Marcel's wife in this film kills several people with rat poison. So, as you can imagine, it's a little bit different.
Oh, maybe it's the same character and she was just suffering from the effects of being exposed to rat poison.
Sure, we'll go with that. There is a Kaurismaki cinematic universe.
Yeah, there should always be a cinematic universe attached to every film. Nothing should stand on its own. Nothing.
I feel like I should have one of those cork boards with the yarn or string connecting different strands together.
You don't?
I mean, not yet, but I'm going to.
Good. I mean, everyone needs one of those. I don't know. The one thing that sort of struck me as a little interesting is just the fact that Idrissa does not get much in the way of lines. Less than I expected.
Yeah, you're right, because the focus is not really... I mean, he is basically the MacGuffin of this film. He is the thing to be transported to a different place. He's not that much of a character in his own right. That said, I think we do spend a lot of time with presumably fellow refugees and immigrants, especially as Marcel is going on his search to find where Idrissa comes from or where he's going. So I don't think the film necessarily serves him ill, but it is definitely not particularly concerned with him.
Yeah, he's not the narrative focus, and I expected at first that he would be, especially when it started following him around as he, went out to shine shoes.
But at the same time, this is going to sound weird, I'm kind of glad he wasn't, not because I don't think he could have or would have been a good character, but because I think if you had given him more screen time, you would have had more of kind of like what the stereotypical Hollywood version of this would be, is like an old man and a young kid bond together and learn the facts of life. And, that might have been a fine film, but I'm not sure I would have liked that film as much.
Oh, it could have been like Wilder People.
Oh, true. I do really like that film, so fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, any additional Wilder People-ing was great.
They could have just like gone bathing in the, I guess it's not the Seine, whatever body of water is off of Normandy.
The Channel?
Sure, that.
I mean, I'm guessing the Channel. Yeah.
I'm barely a film critic. You think I'm a geographer too?
A geologist, yes. I think you're a geologist, which gives you the perfect representation and knowledge of maps.
But yes, it is a valid criticism that he is not much of a character. I don't think it hurts the film, but do we need more stories where immigrants like him are the focus? Absolutely.
Also, the other part that's just like striking commentary is when Idrissa runs out of the crate and then escapes between the crates, and the cop lowers his gun as though to shoot at him and is only stopped by the other guy. Well,
yeah, I mean, I said this is a film fundamentally about good-natured people. I suppose the one exception are most of the police, but I think that is valuable in terms of character development for Marcel, because throughout the film, you never think he is a bad man, but you are uncertain of what his intents and loyalties are. So I think that is an early sign that, no, this is not a monster. Even if he is pursuing Idrissa, it's because this is his job. And you even get that scene where presumably his boss is basically giving him his marching orders. And I think it's important that we never see his boss, that he is a disembodied authority figure that he is answering to and, well, ultimately does not answer to.
Yes, Inspector Monet. I want to see a show about Inspector Monet.
Can he team up with Poirot?
No, I think it's a different time period, but...
Poirot's immortal. He's a Time Lord.
No. You're thinking of the Doctor.
What, there's not multiple Time Lords?
Not anymore.
Oh well. Well, with that bit of nerdery that I am largely unfamiliar with out of the way, we'll move to our final segment, Collect Them All or Collect Not at All. Does this film stay afloat, or does it sink like a stone? You know,
it's been a while since we've seen a movie with an unambiguously happy ending. And part of me, looking at the beginning and the way it started out with essentially a hit, made me wonder, is this just the delusion of Marcel? But in the end, it was an interesting movie that delivered a few laughs. I do think that the notion of this being a comedy is more in the sense that it doesn't try to rend your soul with sadness or a bleak outlook, and it focuses on the power of these small, intimate communities that seem to crystallize around a problem. As you noted, that people weren't exactly friendly to Marcel when he was just a guy, but as soon as he kind of put himself out there to help another individual, it was as though, yeah, there's this altruistic undertone that surfaces suddenly. For me, I enjoyed a large part of it. I thought the performances were good. I thought it was interesting in the way that it set up and didn't necessarily subvert expectations, but attempted to subvert the idea that it was subverting expectations, so it's like a double subvert. But yeah, in the end, this is one of those rare movies we've watched that I can walk away and feel like, hey, things are great. Well, you know, a non-Ingmar Bergman film, which always are uppers for me.
And, well, for me, there is much that is bad in the world, and we should not be blind to it, and we should fight as hard as we can against the dark. But that doesn't mean that we should barricade ourselves against the light, and I found Le Havre a welcome antidote. It is optimistic without being sappy, good-natured without sacrificing craft, and hopeful without being naive. Its emotional appeal would be fruitless if it were not grounded in a world that felt real and characters that felt engaging. There are far worse messages that can be put forth in the world than the concept that people should be helped and that others are good enough to do the helping, and I can sign up for another trip for that. And if our listeners would like to tell us that we are doing good or that we are foul beings, how could they do so, Dr. Z?
Well, they can reach out to us on Instagram. We are at Criterion Correction. We'd love to hear from you, your comments, your thoughts, your movie recommendations. And also, if you really enjoy the show, we'd ask that you go to iTunes, rate and review, and subscribe. And what abomination are you going to subject me to next week?
Well, Dr. Z, everywhere around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat? Summer's here, and the time is right for Swedish musings about the potential fruitlessness of belief. Yep. Much to your joy, I'm sure, it's time for another bout with our favorite worrywart, Ingmar Bergman.
Oh, yes!
As we watch the second film in his Silence trilogy, Winter Light.
What's the first?
Through a Glass Darkly.
You watch that one?
Yes.
Oh, is that the one with the girl on the like performers in the island and the girl who goes crazy?
I like how you just said how much you like Ingmar Bergman, and yet you don't remember the film of his that we watched. But yes.
I do love Ingmar Bergman. I mean, that wasn't necessarily my favorite of them. I think, again, the other ones are a little more uplifting, but yeah, okay. I'm down for that. Sequel time, Bergman.
By sequel, we mean spiritual thematic sequel, but,
Cinematic universe.
Exactly.
Bergmania. For the Criterion Correction, I've been Dr. Zed.
And I've been Ed.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. And kudos to all of our parrot listeners out there.